Happy Place Home Studios.
Hello, and welcome back to Happy Place Home Studio for part 2 of our series on creating your own one-man covers. In part 2, we'll talk about practice and planning for this project. The practice part is pretty straightforward, and we'll get to that shortly. The planning part is a little more extensive than normal for one of my videos because I'm not only creating a one-man cover video, but I'm creating a video about how to create the one-man cover video. So I kind of have to recording myself, if you will. But it's not all that complicated, and we will definitely get through it. So what is it exactly that I have to plan? Well, I'm doing an audio recording. So as with any audio recording in the studio, that always takes a certain amount of planning. But I'm also doing it for a one-man cover, which means I'm playing every instrument, every part of every instrument. So you have some extra planning that really goes along with how do I coordinate all these separate parts being recorded separately onto one track. I'm, of course, making a video alongside that audio. So I've got to do the normal planning for creating a music video, basically. Video of me playing all the parts. And then you add on top of that the aspect that I'm creating this series of videos for you about how to create that. So again, it gets back to that. I'm recording myself type stuff. So the normal planning that goes into an audio track is just simply going to be setting up the project in my DAW, which is Digital Performer. Pretty straightforward there. The one thing I'm doing that's interesting on that project is on the drums, I'm going to record every component of the drum kit on a separate track. And the reason I'm doing that is because my good friend Gary Wagner has agreed to do a mix for me on this. And in the last track that we did, we didn't have access to every individual drum component. So we're going to try that this time, and he'll have a little extra mixing capability because every single component of the drum kit is on a separate track. So that'll be interesting. I have not done that before. Aside from that, one of the normal things that I need to do when I'm doing one of these one-man covers is, of course, I'm trying to be musically close to the sounds that are on the original track. And that means that for each instrument, piano, bass, drums, multiple guitar parts, I've got to try to find the right settings and how I'm going to do the recording. And meaning, what amp am I using? What settings on that amp? And of course, what I'm going to do is rely, as I always do, on things like my Helix. So I'll be selecting a setting from the Helix for the guitar parts, for example. So I've got to set that up. And I'll be recording each guitar part, especially dry, as well as with perhaps the preset settings from the Helix. Although I might just bypass that, because one of the things I can do is I can bring the guitar parts in to my DAW and then apply the Helix native plugin and play with those settings as much as I want to. So I might switch back and forth between several different guitar settings before I know the one that I want, and I can do that post-recording. So that's going to be great. So those are all normal components of recording anything, of course, but I've got to make those selections on which settings on my electronic drum kit, on the bass, on the guitars, and even on my keyboard are going to work best for my selected song. And I guess I should talk about my selected song. Speaking of planning, I have selected Werewolves of London. As I mentioned at the end of the first part of this series, I was looking at several different songs. I'm going to record Werewolves of London. It's just one of my favorite songs. I really love the track, and we'll talk more about Werewolves of London in just a minute here. All right, so then that's the audio recording component. And then let's talk about the video. And first, let's talk about just the resulting video from all of this, not for this series of how-to videos, but the resulting one-man music video. I just got to think about, what do I want from that? Now, I usually keep those pretty straightforward. I might do the no head recording as I did on the Collective Soul song, just to keep that component out of there, not have to worry about my facial expressions and that kind of thing. But do I want to have a theme of some kind for the video, or is it just going to be straight up, just different captures of me playing the different instruments? Probably going to keep that part pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And then as far as the video for this series, I'll try to get as much as I meaningfully can about, how the how-to components of it. I am going to try to avoid having a camera on a camera recording me if I can, but I do want to, impart as much information as I can about how do you do this? How do you make this one-man video? So there are several components for me to plan with the complexities not only of an audio track recording with completely separate sessions for each instrument, but also the component of making this video for you guys as well. The first element of our planning discussion is how I've laid out the project in Digital Performer, which is my DAW. As you can see, I've got a virtual instrument set up for the drums, which will be played on the Roland TD30. There's also my plug-in for the guitars, and this is how I'll control the sounds on the guitars and on the bass. Taking a look at the track layout, pretty standard, a track for each of the instruments, sometimes multiple tracks for multiple guitar parts. But down here is where I'll point out that I've got the separate tracks set up for the drums. So here's the folder for the drum tracks and 8 separate inputs from the TD30 that are actually separate from the stereo input from the TD30 and the MIDI track that I'll be able to record simultaneously. So what we'll do here is I'll just do a quick beginning of a recording so that you can see how the recording works. All 10 of those tracks will be recorded simultaneously. As you can see, when I begin the recording session, all 10 of the tracks record at the exact same time. So I'm simultaneously getting a MIDI recording of the drums, which I can play back through Easy Drummer, which allows me to pick any kit I want later if I want to tweak the sounds of the drums. And I get a stereo recording and 8 separate tracks for Gary as he's doing his mix. Pretty slick. Got the way that I'll record the drums covered. The next thing we'll talk about is the in-studio method that I'll use to record the guitars and the keyboard. I have this extra thing, this extra complication, if you will, with Rocksmith, because I'll be recording over Rocksmith to have the timing and the rest of the band involved as I record each individual instrument rather than just trying to record each individual instrument solo. Well, that means I want to be connected to Rocksmith with my guitars. So I found a really cool solution, and we'll talk about that next. I've made myself a new bestie on this project. This is the AR133 Active DI box from BAS Audio. And I have never used it before. I've had it for a while, but I've never used it. But it has a really cool capability, not only as an active DI to match your signal and have perfect sound coming out of your guitar or your bass as it goes into my Motu 1248 behind me over here, but it's also got this link function here. And what that does is it allows me to take the raw signal from the guitar or the bass and send it to another place. And what that's doing is allowing me to use Rocksmith at the same time I'm recording into my DAW. And the cool thing about Rocksmith is when you plug your guitar into it, you're going to get the amp sound and settings for that song. So you're playing what you want to hear, not just a raw guitar sound. So this capability is really nice. So I will use this setup with my 1248 into my DAW and into Rocksmith at the same time as I'm recording all the guitar parts and the bass part. That leaves the keyboard, which is actually fairly straightforward. For one thing, again, Warren Zevon played the same riff over and over and over again. So from a recording standpoint, musicianship-wise, it's pretty straightforward. He's got a cool lilt in his riff, and I need to master that. But to actually physically do the recording, I'll do the same thing as I did with the drums. I'll have an audio recording, but I'll also do a MIDI recording through a virtual instrument. And that will give me maximum flexibility in deciding what sound I ultimately want from the piano. I've got a baby grand audio setup that I'll use for the audio recording, but the virtual instrument lets me do almost anything that I want. The final component of the planning process is going to be that thing I've mentioned a few times. How do I record how to do this at the same time that I'm actually creating the music video? Well, I'll keep that as straightforward as I can. And basically what I'll be trying to do is say, here's how I'm setting up this shot from a video standpoint to make the actual music video. I'll just simply use two cameras. One of the cameras is recording my music video, and the other camera is recording me recording my music video and making the commentary that I want to make on why I'm doing it this particular way and how I'm doing it, etc. One of the things that, of course, you have to deal with when you're making the video is that you want everything synced so that you don't have too much work to do to try to say, okay, here's me playing this part, but it doesn't look like I'm playing the part because it's synced and the hand movement isn't right. So a couple of tricks there that I'll show you, and we'll take it from there. Now, finally, we'll address the practice element, which is nothing to address. I just have a few short video shots of me practicing. So I'll be practicing this for weeks before I actually do the recording. Time is physically going by as well because I've had a lot of travel in the middle of producing this video. So that makes me rewind and practice some more, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I remember the piano part for this song, but it's been a long time, so I'm just gonna do it a million times. Remember, I talked about how much of a perfectionist am I going to be, and I'm going to try to record myself for the video playing the piano part start to finish and try to minimize overdubbing. I'm unlikely to achieve that goal, but that's my goal. I'm going to the riff can be played in a lot of ways. Zevon did not do anything fancy. He just had pretty much the same riff start to finish, like I said. But there are different ways you can play it. And by the way, piano parts are not in Rocksmith, so just the guitars, bass and guitars. But there are many resources for figuring out how to play a song or riff, whatever. And there's a lot of good YouTubes on how to play this particular song. So just gonna give it a try and do some practicing here. So the right hand's pretty simple, the left hand's pretty simple. It's just getting to where I can. Yeah, that's what I thought. to be able to do that 1,000 times in a row without making any mistakes. Now there are other things that I think Zabon does on the left hand, so he'll do. Also, he's probably playing it a little stronger. And so it will go as I practice this part until I got it down perfectly. All right, as I mentioned, John McVie created a great bass part for this song, and especially so since the song is very repetitive. It goes over the same three chords again and again, as I said. So both he and Mick Fleetwood were very creative in the rhythm section and varying the ways that they played it. John used a lot of slides and bends sort of on the bass to create different tonalities and keep it interesting. But it's a fun bass part to play, but not difficult. So this is not a super challenging part of my practice routine, but I'm going to practice it quite a bit. One thing to note is that, when you're doing a one-man cover, one of the things is, how do you actually lay down your rhythm tracks and keep everything in time and that type of thing. And I have a very, very easy solution to that, which is Rocksmith. I'm just going to play everything over Rocksmith. And obviously with my recording setup, I can do that. I can record my guitars direct. That makes it very, very easy to play just over the original track and keep the timing right. And it obviously makes it easy when I can follow along with the music in Rocksmith as well, at least for the guitars. So let's go ahead and practice a run of Werewolves of London. Well, that will bring us to the drums. And as I said before, Mick Fleetwood did his Mick Fleetwood thing. He's such a strong, capable drummer. He created a great but straightforward beat for Werewolves of London. But if you listen to the song, it's actually much more intricate than it initially sounds. Tons of fills, just really great accents. And that's really important, again, because this is a fairly repetitive song. So, again, my capabilities as a drummer is literally thousands of degrees below Mick Fleetwood's. I can keep the beat. The question is, can I do a good job with the fills? Now, this is the one area that I'm more than likely going to do some dubbing. And when I create the video, I'll try to be creative and just simply use cutaway shots to a different angle to fill with the fills. And my initial focus will just be on keeping the beat throughout the entire song, and then I'll go back and backfill the fills. Part 3 of this series will actually look at the recording of the video itself, the final production, and that will lead into part 4, which is the actual one-man cover that I create for Werewolves of London. We'll see you soon for part 3 of creating one-man covers here on Happy Place Home Studio.